everyone, welcome to N90X. Today I want to talk to you about XenDesktop, especially for those of you who are not XenDesktop experts, but maybe networking guys or NetScaler people, and you want to play with XenDesktop. I just spent the last couple of weeks building my lab, and I had a few problems that I wanted to discuss with you that maybe you might experience the same issues, and maybe this video will help you. So before we get started, let's talk about the prerequisites. In terms of physical machines, I'm using two physical machines. One is an 8-core XEON machine with 32 gigs of RAM, and the second is a 4-core older machine with that's running FreeNAS, as you see here, and iSCSI. Now I have another video on this channel on how to set up iSCSI using FreeNAS, and that's the process that I went through to do that. And for the ESXi that I'm using for this lab, I gave it 200 gigabytes, which if you use thin provisioning, and you must use thin provisioning, you should be fine. So two physical machines, and I think I would be able to get it down to a single machine if I had some SSDs, or maybe if I use my MSAT drives on a PCI card internally. I probably could get this all on a single machine. But anyhow, I digress. With 3 virtual machines, you could build the lab. I'm using Windows 2012. And the first machine, of course, is going to be your Active Directory machine. So if you want to use Essentials, Windows 2012 Essentials, it makes it really super easy to build your first machine. And in fact, Windows 2012 Essentials assumes that it is the first machine in your environment, and it will go ahead, when you give it run the wizard that comes with it, automatically it will build your Active Directory and your DNS and everything really nicely. You can later on convert it to a Windows Server standard when you license it, but that's what I did. You see, this is a licensed copy. So that's the first machine you need, is a Windows 2012 for your Active Directory and DNS. Okay, I'm using DHCP from my router, but you might also want to use, if you want to use DHCP on the server, you can also configure that, but it's optional if you have DHCP coming off your home router or the router at home, okay, or in your lab. The second machine you need is that is going to host the controller, the XenDesktop Controller. This second machine is going to have, you're going to install XenDesktop, everything, okay? Now, best practices, if you're going to go into production, you would want to split it up. You know, maybe put the licensing server on another machine, maybe put your storefront on another machine. But if you're just going to have a few users in your lab environment, you can get it all on a single machine. Now, all of my machines I'm using 2 V-cores, 2 virtual cores, and 4 gigs of RAM, okay? And everything's thin provisioned, okay? And it fits easily on a 200 gig iSCSI partition or provisioned storage space. Okay, that's your second machine, and here's where you'll create your machine catalog and also your delivery groups. Now, the third machine is the actual Xen server. Okay, in this case, it is server, and this is the server where you're going to install all of the apps that you want to share. Okay, so in my case, I installed Creative Suite 2, and I also installed Windows Office. That's what I installed on this machine that I wanted to virtualize. I'm sharing the desktop, so you could connect to the desktop, the Windows 2012 desktop, and utilize that. Now, if you wanted to virtualize a Windows 7 or Windows 8 or Windows 10 desktop, you can also do that. In that case, you would have a 4th machine that you would need to create a virtual machine for, okay, initially. Now, one of the problems that I had, or the biggest problem that I had, was when I created this machine, this XenApp, what I call the XenApp Server. Make sure that you right away attach it to the domain. Okay, make it part of the domain. Log in as the administrator of the domain and install all of your apps and install the VDA, okay, or the virtual desktop appliance, I think it's called, the VDA. Anyway, all of these programs come off of the same installation ISO, which installs XenDesktop, okay? So when you do that, make sure you're on the domain. And since we're virtualizing a virtual machine, do not manually add the controller when you're installing it. Click the tab that the controller will automatically register the machine. That's where I think my problem was, where the machine did not show up as a registered machine, and I couldn't access it. So you can see here in delivery groups, if you do it correctly, it'll show up as a registered machine right there at the bottom. So it is registered, and all my applications, you can see when you go to add applications and it sees your applications, you know you're good to go. Okay, but in order to do that, don't manually add the controller. Okay, and those are the three machines that I have, and everything seems to be working, or at least it was working earlier. So now let me see if I can get into my virtual environment. Now, N90X. All right. Citrix Viewer kicks in. So this is one thing that I noticed, is when I launch this from Firefox, it immediately opens the desktop, the virtual desktop for Windows 2012 that I'm sharing. So you can see here it is. I have the desktop. I don't really want the desktop. I want just, let's say I wanted just to access some apps. Now certainly I could just access them here locally off this machine. I should be able to. Let's see it's working. Photoshop. So you can see Photoshop is working within the desktop. So I virtualized the desktop, Windows 2012 desktop, and I can run applications on the desktop directly. This is one option. And this may be the solution that you want. You want to run the things directly on the desktop, but it's not necessarily. So I'm virtualizing the desktop and the app in the desktop, okay? That's one way you can go. Okay, cancel that. So there is Photoshop from Creative Suite 2. So this is an older version of the app, but it's what I have, so available. It's what I had handy, so that's what I'm using. Oh, there we go. Okay. So that's that. That's the first step. Now let's go back to Firefox, and let's see if I just want to run, for instance, Word as an app. And it should run it Yeah, it's running it. There we go. It's running it using the Citrix viewer as an app without the desktop. So this is the this is the XenApp portion. See that? It's not part of the desktop. It's right by itself. So really, this is a really incredible solution for. It's really intended for the huge or offices or companies that have a lot of employees, where you want to virtualize, you want to centralize everything and virtualize either desktops and apps or just apps, whatever the case may be. But in your lab, just to play with this, it's a great. Oh, let's I don't want to click on that. Oh, it's gonna bring my desktop back up, huh? Oh, it gave me another desktop. Look at that. Did it? No, it gave me the same desktop. Okay, so let's close up Word, and what I wanted to see is if I fire up Photoshop by itself, it's bringing me to the desktop. Like, no, it's starting the application separately. See that? So here's Photoshop separately, running just as an app, as a virtualized app. And you can see Citrix has a unique advantage over the competitors. That being ICA, okay, or the Independent Compute Architecture, which is the protocol that allows all this stuff to work. It is much more advanced than RDP, and this is what I wanted. It's much more advanced than RDP or Remote Desktop Protocol. In fact, RDP was originally licensed from Citrix, an older version of ICA. But ICA is much more advanced, and you can see, even though I am on a gigabit network on the LAN, but it's as if this app is running locally on my machine, when in fact it's actually running on a server in a rack somewhere else. Okay, so that is XenDesktop. That is XenApp. So that is a brief overview of XenApp, XenDesktop, and this is the 7.8 version of XenDesktop XenApp, running again off of just 2 physical boxes, an 8-core machine with 32 gigs of RAM, and the second machine is my iSCSI box running off of FreeNAS. That's a 4-core Xeon running with, I think, 14 gigs of RAM on that machine. But you can do it for a lot, you don't need to have that much memory on the FreeNAS box. So I hope this has been helpful to you. I think I covered the main sticking point that I had was the virtual machine not registering. But if you do, like I said, when you install the VDA on the XenApp server, the server that you want to virtualize on, make sure you're part of the domain and make sure you're logged in as an admin on the domain before you install your apps and before you install the VDA. And then when you install the VDA, do not manually add the controller. Tell it to let the controller register the server, okay? And everything should appear as registered, and you should be good to go. All right? This is Joe at N90X. I hope this is helpful to you. If you like this content and you want to support this channel, we have N90X mugs available. On the one side, I Heart NetScaler. On the other side, N90X. For a contribution of $125, that includes shipping, ship it out worldwide. I know that's a lot of money for a cup, but you're not buying the cup. You're paying for the content on this website. Thank you for your support. I hope you will consider that. And I'll see you on the next video. Take care.